This is the Mobile Tech Podcast, brought to you by worldpodcasts.com. Now here's your host, Tech Girl, Miriam Joie.
Brought to you by Mint Mobile. Stay tuned for a special offer at the end of the show. Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Joie, and today is Thursday, August 3rd, 2023, and I've got the most awesome Christian DeLooper here as my guest today. Hi, Christian. How are you?
Hi, most awesome. I'll take that. I'm good. How are you?
Dude, you are most awesome. First of all, I mean, we both review tech and cars. Mm-hmm. And secondly, you live in my neck of the woods. Like, you're just down the street,
true.
like an hour drive away or something. So
I'm like San Francisco plus hippie town, and you got Santa Cruz right there.
I mean, Santa Cruz is charming. You know, I love Santa Cruz. How can you not love Santa Cruz?
It's a good spot.
So just to kind of recap a little bit in terms of audience, like last week, I gave you a podcast that was exclusively about everything that was announced at Samsung's Unpacked event. So we went through like the Z Flip, the Z Fold, the Watch 6, the Tab S9, and all the derivatives with, you know, Rich Woods of XDA. And we didn't talk about the news, Christian, which is why we have like a ton of like tiny little newsy bits. And then you and I do cars. So I kind of want to talk a little bit about some of the more puzzling EVs that I've had a chance to play with.
Okay, there's some puzzling ones out there.
I mean, this is kind of like what I love about this kind of golden age of the EV, like the beginning, is that people are kind of like doing what Samsung did back in the day with the Note series, you know, like, let's do this and see what happens. And then you're like, what are you guys doing? But sometimes it lands properly, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So the first bit of news is a kind of a rumor, but it sounds like maybe this OnePlus Open, if that's what it's going to be called, folding phone might be delayed. And now I'm kind of bummed because I was really looking forward to that one.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, there's been rumors about it for a while now. Been waiting for it to come out, but yeah, it's one of the ones I've been most looking forward to for the year. Another folding phone for North America is always good, and yeah.
Yeah, so obviously we don't know, like this is a rumor, we don't know what's going on at this point. There was also rumors, I think, or was it confirmed that there was going to be an event in New York at some point? I don't remember, but I remember hearing something about the end of August. So maybe now it's pushed to, I don't know, September, October, which just means we're going to have a busier Techtober than ever before.
Right. Can't wait.
I don't know. I'm not too keen. I mean, at least, okay, there's a positive here. We've kind of gone through all the folding phones for the year, I think, mostly, right?
Most of them,
like we might get some Chinese ones that are like not as relevant to our listeners.
Sure.
But because they're China only and not global, I think though we're going to see the Honor Magic V2 announced as a global phone at IFA. That's a hunch. I don't know.
This one.
Oh, you have the Chinese model.
I have.
How is it?
It's great. I really like it. It's so thin. It feels...
I know.
So to be fair, I have a case on my other phones that I use day to day, so they're a bit thicker. It feels like one of those phones when closed. It's that thin, and opened up, it's crazy.
And it's lighter than an iPhone 14 Pro Max, which is kind of crazy as well.
Yeah, it's super light. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to getting a global model of this, you know, of course, for myself, but I'm talking about for our audience, like for folks that are listening right now in India, you're definitely going to get that phone. I don't think US customers are really going to be, you know, probably going to get that. I mean, you can import it, but I'm just saying like the 5G bands and all the issues around that. And of course, if you're on AT&T, for example, you need to have VoLTE, which some phones have, some don't. So you always have these compatibility issues. But I do know you guys are early adopters. You folks will figure it out. So if you want the coolest, honestly, the coolest folding book style phone on the market today, you can't go wrong with the Magic V2, right?
Yeah, and I think I'm allowed to say this. This is not a Chinese version, actually. This is a global model that I have, and it works great. Okay. Yeah.
So it's definitely coming because, you know, the thing with the Chinese models, you can install the Play services, right? Like it's not like I often get Chinese phones that, you know, don't necessarily have the Play Store enabled, but it's just easy to enable. But this one was just came with it.
Yeah, it's pre-release software basically.
Nice.
Yeah.
Look at you getting all the toys. So speaking of folding phones, we actually had this little chat earlier before we started recording. I obviously have the Z Flip 5 and the Z Fold 5, and I don't want to talk too much about them, but I just want to say I also have the Pixel Fold now that I finally got just a few days before going to Korea. So I used it the whole time I was in Korea. I actually purposely did not use the Samsung phones on the last day in Korea. We got them the kind of like the night before the last day we were there. And then they took us around town to take photos and stuff. And I was like, I'm just going to wait till I'm back in San Francisco, do an unboxing video, take my time. And I took all my photos on this, cultural day, aka the indoctrination day,
Sure.
with my Fold actually. And the Pixel one.
Yep.
And wow, this camera. Wow, that camera. Man, like we kind of forget, like it's not that we forget because obviously I carry a Pixel 7 Pro all the time, but it's just more like you finally get a folding phone that delivers that level of photography, and it's a game changer. Like I just didn't have to hesitate. I could just use it for everything I was going to shoot.
Yeah.
So I've got some time with the Pixel Fold now under my belt, and of course I've played. Since I got back, I've been using the Samsung phones because I'm reviewing them for Hot Hardware. Stay tuned. I think that's going to be available next week sometime. I'm taking my time. There's so much here, especially around imaging and like processor performance. I can tell you right now, since nothing's under embargo, that throttling is a real problem on these phones.
Mm-hmm.
And strangely,
good luck seeing
too,
the screen outside.
Yeah. I don't know, like, you're not going to game on these phones. I don't think people are buying these phones to game, but know that if you plan to do a lot of gaming, like kind of harder core, especially on the Flip, you're going to be running out of steam if you play for 20 minutes in a row, like in terms of throttling. That's the biggest kind of discovery I've made. The other big discovery is, as you all know, I'm a big fan of the Razer Plus, and I love the cover display experience on that, the fact that you can run full apps. Samsung's a little more twitchy about that. It takes a lot of jumping hoops to get it working, but once you do, it does work. But I have to say, I feel like I don't want to. Like, I feel like on the Razer, I really want to use the apps, but on the Z Flip, I find that I want to use the widgets. The widgets are so much better than Moto's widgets. That's the thing that I'm kind of coming out with here, is that if I bought a Z Flip 5 for myself, I would probably just use the cover screen with the widgets because they're really well developed, and you can do basic stuff because now you have a bigger screen. But I think if you plan to buy that to run apps on the front screen, get a Moto Razer Plus. I think that's kind of their strengths. In that sense, I think the Razer Plus is more of a niche, kind of early adopter, tech savvy tool, Whereas I think the Z Flip is definitely, you can tell Samsung knows their audience because those widgets are so slick.
Yeah, and I hope they all continue to develop them because those are obviously going to be an important part of using any Flip style phone, for anything really.
Yeah, I think what's happening here is Samsung's expertise with smartwatches is coming through on this cover display.
Yeah.
It's like, imagine a larger smartwatch, and that's kind of the experience you're getting. And I think there's so much more room for improvement. But here's the thing, right? Moto could do the same in software. Nothing stops them from releasing updates that give that functionality too. This is kind of what I love about this. This is no longer a hardware issue. This is just purely a what can we do with the cover display issue, right?
Right.
So let's see how it develops. As for, the cameras on these phones, they're fine, but they're not, same hardware as last year. So obviously better processor, better ISP, but honestly, it doesn't have anything on the Pixel Fold. Like the Pixel Fold just obliterates those two cameras just like that.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of sad. You put them side by side and you're like, you put it side by side with you take the Z Fold, the $1,800 phone, you put it side by side with the S23 Ultra, and the S23 Ultra just obliterates this camera system.
Sure.
Like, we kind of know this going in, but when you're holding this thing in your hand and you're like, I'm holding $1,800, and you're like, I'm basically compromising my camera experience.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong, right? Like, you know this, Christian, right? Like, we're nitpicking here. These cameras are fine. It's just...
Yeah, but you still shouldn't have to compromise like that for a phone that expensive.
Exactly. And that's kind of where I'm going, like... And I don't know, what are the cameras like on that Magic V2?
They're pretty good. I haven't fully tested them that much just yet, but they're pretty good. They're better than I expected, to be honest.
Yeah, like where would you place them? Like better than Moto in general? Better than Samsung? Or like
probably not quite as good as Samsung.
Okay.
So, we were already talking about how we'd have to compromise with Samsung foldables, but still good enough for most use, I think.
Right. Okay, so like just a step down from Samsung, are they like in line with some of the other, like we just got the Honor 90 not too long ago, right? How is that compared to that? Yes, that's right.
Yeah, I haven't taken that out of the box just yet. That'll be my next one, but yeah.
It's funny, I'm using it right now and it's good, but it's not like, oh my God, like, I mean, the Magic, of course, the Magic 5 Pro is still their best camera phone, right?
Yeah.
But I always feel kind of like Honor, in terms of imaging, has a lot of potential, but they seem to fall short a little bit in terms of their software. Like the hardware is always really excellent. Like they take all the right boxes, put all the right things in there. But I feel like, then you see the results, and you're like, oh, this is like after all this rah about the camera, it's not really that cool. I mean, it's fine, but
yeah, but I think it seems like they are doing that work though. They are getting better.
I agree. And, going back to the OnePlus news, I feel like in a way, maybe this delay, if it's really happening, is a blessing because it means we're going to get a North American centric, well, at least available widely in North America, folding phone that comes out in the middle of a sea of regular phones, right? Like October, we're going to get the Pixel 8 Pro, which obviously is going to be fantastic. We're going to get, the iPhone 15, which obviously is going to be fantastic. How can Apple screw that up? No doubt it's going to be good, especially USB-C finally. I might just have to buy a new iPhone. I'm still on an iPhone 11, so that's how long I've waited.
Yeah,
it's funny, to do. Well, because I was like, normally it's 2 years for me, the cycle, because I have to buy my own phones. They don't give them to me. But I was like, nothing was compelling me to upgrade for what I do, which is mostly video recording for my, for my reviews and stuff. Yeah. I was just like, man, this is fine.
No dynamic island for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I like it. I think it's cool. But actually, speaking of which, that's one of the things that the Z Flip 5 does when you're playing a music in a media player on the cover screen. You know how it's got that little cutout at the bottom there, that little notch thing that sticks out? It puts a little pill there that looks like a dynamic, like the dynamic island, and it actually puts the song playing. Then if you tap on that, you get to the actual full widget.
Wow. Where did they get that idea?
But look, what I love about it is that they're using that notch area as real estate that matters. You know what I'm saying?
For something, yeah.
Yeah. In the same way as on the Razer Plus, they use that area for the battery status and your notification count. Basically the area to the left of the cameras, right?
Right. So am I right in saying that once this Open comes out, it'll be one of 3 foldables in the US? Is that correct? Because I feel like I've been reviewing foldables so regularly that it's crazy to me that there's only 3 available here right now.
I mean, 3 book style, and we have 2.
3 book style, sure. Yeah.
Flip style, or 3 if you count the second Moto, which hasn't come out in the US yet. By the way, there are reviews of the second Moto on sites. Even Engadget on their YouTube channel just published their review from their UK team. The price in Europe for that smaller, cheaper phone is ridiculous. So don't use that as a basis for what the price is going to be in the US. My gut feeling is it's going to be very aggressive. I think since the Razer Plus was not available from Verizon at all and doesn't have millimeter wave, we might see a Verizon version that's exclusive, or not. I hope not exclusive, but in the same way as in the past, I've had the millimeter wave exclusive for Verizon, then an unlocked non-millimeter wave version on moto.com or on Best Buy. I wouldn't be surprised if you get that, and that the pricing is super aggressive for North America. So you might, if you don't care about cover screens, you might be able to get a folding phone that's half decent for a really good deal here in the US soon. I have no info on this, but this is my gut feeling, because if they price it the same as they did in the UK, there's no point. But also India's pricing is very aggressive. So I think that bodes well for us.
I just hope they don't make the millimeter wave model more expensive like they have in the past, because that's...
Well, Verizon will charge you an extra $50. It's called the millimeter wave tax, But it won't matter if you're on Verizon, because you're going to buy it through a subsidy anyway, right? So It's basically the Razr Plus is going to be like $30 a month or $20 a month, right? And then the Razr Non-Plus through Verizon is probably going to be $10 a month or even $5 a month. And for some people, that's going to be like, make it or break it,
Sure.
I just always feel like with subsidies, this is kind of the contradiction. You correct me if I'm wrong, right? But the contradiction here to me is that Moto is selling this cheaper phone in the market where cheaper phones are not necessary, because cheaper phones, like, people don't look at the price of the phone. They look at the subsidy price.
Right.
Like you and I and my audience, those of you listening out there who buy your phones unlocked as God intended, are we're a different breed, right? The average American just walks into a store. If they see the Razr Plus, I mean, at Verizon, that won't be the case. But if they go to a T-Mobile store and they see the Razr Plus Magenta next to the Razr, if it exists on T-Mobile eventually, they'll be like, oh, it's $2 more a month. Like, whatever, sign me up. I want the big cover screen.
Right.
So I think that's also why we don't have a market for that kind of mid-range, right? Like, we kind of have the A series and the Nord N series that are like sub 500. And then, we've got that tiny cluster of $500 phones, right? Galaxy Fan Edition. We've got the of course, this A series Pixels, which are as much. The current one, in my opinion, is a proper flagship, and I think that's kind of crazy for $500.
Yeah.
You also have the iPhone SE3 in that, but it's a tiny cluster compared to abroad, right? Abroad, you have like the Nord from OnePlus. You have a whole bunch of like Realmes and Redmis and Pocos.
Do we not have a Nord here?
We have the N series Nords, but they're like 300-ish and sub that. And they're a little detuned compared to the regular Nord. Yeah. The regular Nord, like the current Nord 3, is, I still think the Nothing Phone 2 is in that category of $500. And honestly, I think is a better phone than the Nord 3. But the Nord 3, you look at the specs, it's essentially a OnePlus 11 with Dimensity 9000. I think it's a Dimensity. But my point is, it's like, almost spec for spec identical, yet it's like, definitely
much cheaper.
Like $100 or $200 cheaper. So, but we don't get that here because I don't think there's a market for it. Like, that's my point. Like, let's speculate. Say the Razr Non-Plus comes out at $699. Awesome price, right? Like this, but who's going to care when they buy it subsidized? That's why I'm kind of like, I'm not sure where Moto was going with this one. Like, on one hand, yes, you're democratizing flip phones a little bit by lowering the price worldwide. But at the same time, also, you can probably buy a Z Flip 4, last year's Samsung, for a discount, right?
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
So I don't know. I'm just looking forward to getting a disruption in our candy bar, rollouts in October or September, whatever it comes out, by having that OnePlus kind of just disrupt things a little bit. I just hope they don't mess this up. Like, I'm just worried they're going to pull a no wireless charging, or some little thing is just going to be like, oh man, why did you do that? Like, I can totally get like on the Honor V2, the Magic V2, that they would not have wireless charging. You're going for thickness. I get it. That's totally acceptable. Plus, Honor is really China plus, right? In terms of market share. It does have obviously an international presence because it can get Google Play services and, all that good stuff. But I don't think it's really like pushing hard in the rest of the world, right? So, in China, wireless charging doesn't matter. And that's a fact. And that's also why I always feel like OnePlus owned Oppo is strategically making these mistakes when they target our market with a phone like the OnePlus 11, which is an awesome phone, but then they just mess it up with a $2 feature that should be table stakes, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't see many other ways that they could mess it up apart from omitting wireless charging. I mean, what else?
Well, they could have a 2 megapixel macro on that thing. You know, that would, like, for a flagship that costs like probably $1,700 would make me cringe.
It would make me cringe too.
So I'm really hoping the camera system is on point, you know?
But they don't have to have the best camera system, unfortunately, because the landscape of foldables is that the camera systems are kind of secondary to the gimmick of being able to fold your phone.
Yes, but at the same time, the kind of
Not that it's a
rumors
gimmick,
and
but, you know.
the rumors I'm getting are that they want this to be the Oppo OnePlus flagship. Like, they're not going to compromise anything. So that means to me they have to have a better camera system than the OnePlus 11.
Yeah.
They might not have as good a camera system as the Oppo Find X6 Pro, because that's a camera specific phone, but I can see them getting close.
Right.
Now, with Oppo's imaging pipeline, that actually might work out okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, the OnePlus 11 takes good photos. It's the first OnePlus in a while where I felt like, oh, okay, this can play with the big boys.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll see.
I'm curious to see where it fits, kind of, because we have the super slim Galaxy Folds, which I don't really love that form factor, even though I get that it's a great phone. And we have the pretty wide and short Pixel Fold. It seems like the OnePlus will be kind of in the middle there, which I think will be great.
Yeah, my gut feeling is, from all the rumors we've seen, is that it's actually going to be like the Magic V2, a full-size normal phone when folded. So kind of cut the difference. I do like the passport form factor of the Pixel Fold, and I love the cameras. My beef with that phone is that Tensor and more importantly, like, nothing's optimized for that display. The only apps that are optimized for that experience, the inner display, the big screen, is Google's apps, and they're great. But like, you know, so I'm in Chrome a lot. I'm in Gmail a lot. I'm in, like, you know, other Google apps a lot. But as soon as I use my social media apps, you know, it's black bar, you know, letterboxing of doom. And that's just really annoying. Like, Facebook's the only one that if you shift the phone 90 degrees, actually uses the width of it. Yeah. You know, it's the reverse of Samsung. So, you know, as much as I don't like the fold form factor, the tall, skinny, when you open a fold, most apps behave properly. Yeah. Whereas when you open the Pixel Fold, you have to sometimes rotate it 90 degrees right away to really benefit on non-Google apps. Yeah. And it's just kind of like, what were they thinking?
There's a lot of work that has to be done there. And, you know, a lot of developers consider, quote, optimizing their app for a foldable form factor as just kind of stretching the app out. Whereas you use the same app on an iPad, for example, and it's great. There's extra, you know, panes, there's extra columns, there's extra information that you can use. So
yeah, and that's kind of the problem, right?
Yep.
It's like we're not getting that extra mile. And it's a chicken and egg thing, right? Because developers are like, well, it's like 5 people are using folding phones in the world. Why would we care, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Speaking of OnePlus and of Pixels, there are some pretty solid spec leaks on the OnePlus 12 and the Pixel 8 Pro that I want to go through because, like, you know, you see one rumor once and you go like, okay. You see it again a second time, you're like, And a third time, you're like, okay, this is pretty much confirmed at this point. So let's go through these specs together. So the OnePlus 12 is supposed to come out with a Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, which, you know, should be announced in October this year. Like, Qualcomm is shifting their schedule of flagship chip launches to help the Chinese market launch phones before Chinese New Year. So in the past, you would start seeing those new phones or the new chips late December. You know, before that it was even January, but then immediately they go on vacation for a month. Yeah. So it wasn't very, you know, kind of conducive to a good sales model. So what they're doing is shifting forward so that those phones can come out in October, November, and then they've getting 2 or 3 months of, you know, sales before the Chinese New Year, which, as you know, we only get like 3 phones with those chips. Right? The Samsung, the OnePlus, maybe the Moto, whatever.
Yeah.
But in the rest of the world, there's like all the Oppos and the Realmes and the everything, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. So depending on when this launches, it could be one of the first with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. Maybe not the first, who knows? But yeah, that's great.
Absolutely. And then the good news is there's a periscope lens in here for the optical zoom. It's only 3x, which is a bit odd, but I kind of think I understand why, because it's got a massive sensor underneath it. Supposedly, I think a 64 megapixel, which, makes the depth of the optics kind of critical. So if you want to do it right, you want to fold the lens at that point. I wish it was a little more like 4x or 5x or something, but I'll take it. I'll take it because we haven't seen a folded lens on a OnePlus or Oppo flagship in a really long time, considering that Oppo essentially invented the folded lens with the Oppo Reno Zoom 10X like 5 years ago or something.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I'm a little disappointed with the 3X here, because we had a 10X 10 or 5 years ago or whatever. The Galaxy S23 Ultra has a 10X. 3X, they don't have to do 10X to be pretty good. They have to do at least 5, in my opinion.
I agree, but notice that all the 10X cameras are small sensors. So all the, like, if you look at the good telephotos, they're all 48, 50, 64 megapixel, and they all only 4x or 5x folded lenses. For example, Pixel 7 Pro, etc.
I think I'd prefer a smaller sensor and better zoom.
Okay. I kind of like the idea.
For that camera. I mean, and on a phone with 4 cameras.
Yeah, I see your point. I think for me, what it boils down to is that it's kind of a compromise of, I think what Samsung's doing, where they have the 3X and the 10X makes sense, because then you really have optimization, right? You can do 3 to 10, 10 to plus. But if you only have one, I think 5 is really high. You get that big gap between your 1X and your 5X. Where if you're doing a 3x photo or a 4x, it gets crunchy. Yep. Whereas with a large sensor at 3x or at 4x, you are, kind of covered up to that. And then you can actually get 3x photos that are pixel binned. So good low light telephoto. And then it starts to degrade as you zoom out, right?
Sure.
Because you have to crop the sensor and do other techniques. So I think it's kind of like, it's a question of, it's a compromise. You pick one or the other, right? There's really only 2 phones or 2 phone series that have done dual zoom. And that's, the S23 and 22 and 21 Ultras. And of course, the Huawei P Pro series, P30 Pro, P40 Pro, P50 Pro. And those are that's it. Nobody's done it other than that, right? So
yeah.
I think it's more expensive to do that than probably to do something like Pixel 7 Pro. So,
sure. Yep.
But that battery looks crazy. 5,400 milliamp hour at 100 watt. Like,
that's a big
bring it
battery.
on.
Yep.
And wireless charging. At last.
Finally.
Confirmed. Yeah.
So the display is going to be an LTPO display, but we don't know the resolution just yet, right? Because that battery could really be eaten up by the display if it's a higher resolution.
Yeah, but the 11
Are we
had
assuming it's 1080p or?
No, I think this is going to be Quad HD, because the 11 had a Quad HD display this year,
right.
And the 10 Pro had a Quad HD. I think they're doing Quad HD on, basically Oppo and OnePlus are doing Quad HD on their flagship candy bars, like the ultra top of the line phones. So like the Find X6 Pro also has a Quad HD display. So 1440p. I think that's fine. It might be in between two. I don't know if you've noticed that there's an entire tweener now.
I have
resolution between 1080 and 1440. I think that Honor 90 we just talked about has that, which for that mid-range price point is really impressive. It's a beautiful screen.
Yep.
Maybe they're going to downgrade it to that. In that case, that battery is going to last like a ton on, especially maybe not weeks, but we don't know much about the 8 Gen 3, right? If it's more power efficient, then wow, right?
Yeah.
So could be fun.
And add in the fact that it's already got 100-watt charging and hopefully wireless charging.
I know. I'm kind of excited, honestly, by this one, but I'm more excited about the folding ones for OnePlus.
Yeah.
Pixel 8 Pro specs. Okay, this is completely, everything's out of the bag here.
Classic
So we knew
Pixel.
about the display. Again, Quad HD here. LTPO, of course. It's going to be a flat screen. I'm not too happy with the rounded corners, like the iPhone-like look. I really like that rectangular kind of Note or S23 Ultra squarish feel of the Pixel 7 Pro and the 6 Pro. But look, it's a Pixel. I'll take it. I'll take the flat screen. The flat screen's awesome.
Sure.
Lots of RAM there. That's the most RAM we've seen on a Pixel yet. 12. Storage, really, 128 is still a thing. How can 128 still be a thing?
I get it. I am not one for huge amounts of storage. In that I'm one for wanting them, but I don't need them. I almost never use more than 128 gigs.
Neither do I, but it's
I just
nice
pay for
to
cloud
have.
storage.
Well, that's right. But also, if you record a lot of 4K video, it can be an issue. I think
true.
I don't record 4K. I record everything at 1080p on my phone, so I don't care. So, you're seeing the 12 gigs of RAM and you're like, okay, come on. Like, give us, throw us a bone. Like, Samsung, one of the nice things about the Flip 5 is that it comes with 256 base now.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of par for the course.
Yeah, that's true.
But other than that, big battery, 27 watt charging though, man. What is it with US phones charging at a glacial pace?
I don't know what it is, but I wish it would change because it's a pain.
Like, I think 60 or 66 watt is baseline nowadays. Like, if you don't have that, you're not playing the right game,
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
That's my take. Now, the camera system sounds exciting. We're getting a 64 megapixel ultra wide. That's exciting to me because, well, the ultra wide's always been the weak spot, in my opinion, on the Pixels. It's not wide enough. The resolution's kind of meh. It's kind of crappy in low light because it doesn't have pixel binning. And, you get the problem of the f-stop being generally 2.2 or something like that on an ultra wide. And so having a bigger sensor means you can possibly, especially with Google's imaging expertise, definitely get better low light. Like, night sight on this ultra wide is going to be incredible.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So
that's good. Let's hope that Tensor G3 doesn't suck.
That's the big question mark for me here. I mean, this specs leak obviously puts the Tensor G3 as the chip, which is not a surprise to anyone. But the big thing is how it will perform, because throttling is quite an issue on the Pixel series. The Pixel Fold in particular, I've noticed it more. But I think it's also an issue on the 7 and 7 Pro. But yeah.
Yeah, let me tell you, when you're in Korea, like I was last week, and the temperature in the shade says 98 degrees, which is normal. The humidity, though, is 96%.
Yeah.
And as soon as you step in the sunshine, you look at the, real feel temperature, and it says 112 Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
It's like walking into an oven that was left on, and, your glasses steam up immediately. Like, it's just really rough. And then you have this lump in your pocket that weighs so much, that Pixel Fold, and it's literally burning a hole in your pocket, because the ambient temperature plus whatever you're doing on the phone, plus the crappy radio that Samsung's got in there, Samsung making the chip for Google.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a disaster. It was a disaster. Plus, I was roaming, so I wasn't on my network, so it wasn't the right bands. Like, oof, it was bad.
Yeah.
How was it for you in Australia?
It was also pretty bad. I mean, so it's winter in Australia, and where my family lives, it gets pretty cold. So it wasn't so bad in terms of
so that wasn't a
heat
problem.
weather. That wasn't an issue. But putting it through, benchmarks and just, using it as a generally heavy user, you really notice that screen start to dim and that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's the one that really bugged me the most, actually.
Yeah.
Especially there was so sunny, so hot, that I was like, you open it up and the screen is super bright and you're like, oh man, I can read it in sunlight.
And 5
Literally
seconds
a
later.
minute later.
Yeah.
Like, what's the point in having whatever it is, 1600 nits or something, if you have it for 3 seconds?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's the problem. And I get it. Like, the thing is going to burn a hole in your pocket if they leave it on, right?
Sure.
I don't think it's the display. I don't think it's the display the issue. The display can probably do it for a few minutes. It's the battery is the current drained by the battery at that point gets so high the battery is going to overheat and the whole thing is going to thermally shut down, right? You got to kind of balance the whole thing out.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare. Tensor is just a freaking nightmare.
Hopefully Tensor G3 won't be a nightmare though. We'll see.
I hope so.
The most interesting thing to me about this this spec leak is the temperature sensor, though.
Oh yeah, that's cool, right?
I guess. Are you going to take your temperature with it?
I don't know. Maybe it's just going to give. Maybe that's why they have a temperature sensor because of Tensor G3 doesn't fix anything.
Yeah. Hopefully you're right, and it's not for people to take their temperature with.
Oh God, yeah, I don't know. I mean, a lot. Like I'm wearing the new Watch 6 Classic here. You know, for those of you watching on Patreon, I've got the always on display turned off because I don't want to waste battery. But actually, battery life's pretty good. I haven't charged it in 2.5 days with the AOD off, so it's actually and slept with it, so pretty good. 2 nights, almost 3 days. It's at 25%. Not bad.
Yeah.
But better than Pixel Watch for sure, but also bigger battery, bigger watch. But my point is they have a temperature sensor on this and it's great because it tells you a temperature at night. Like it tells you what.
It's great because it works in the background and you don't have to do anything.
Right.
I have the same thing. Point. I'm wearing the Apple Watch and it's great. It takes the temperature at night,
sensor
whatever.
On that. Right. Yeah.
The best health tracking is not active.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm a Luddite Android user. It's my first time using a device with a temperature sensor. So I'm kind of all excited about it. But no, I agree with you. Like, what's the point if you have to put your finger on something or whatever? Yeah. If it was like a laser sensor, like one of those you point it at something, it tells you the temperature, that would be cool.
Whenever you use your phone, it just points a laser at your forehead and takes your temperature.
Exactly. Total dork
That would
feature.
Actually be better than this temperature
that would be,
sensor
right?
Apparently on the back. But surely it's for something else as well.
Yeah, we'll see. So speaking of periscope lenses, you've played with the Realme GT4, like the one we got at MWC, the one with the 240 watt charging. That thing, like I remember you make all those great videos, those shorts on YouTube and stuff that have like the battery charging speeds and stuff.
Yeah.
So you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
So that phone's supposed to get replaced with a GT5 Pro sometime soon, which in typical Realme fashion, since their flagships are more affordable, is going to use the last gen Snapdragon chip, the Gen 2.
Still a great chip.
At that point, I think the Gen 3 will probably be out. But this phone's supposed to have a periscope telephoto as well. So
at 3x.
3x, and that's again. But you see, let's say the same thing, 64 megapixels. So you know what that tells me? Exactly the same setup as on the OnePlus 12. Because you know how Realme, Oppo, OnePlus, they share all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And we've seen this on and on again. Do you remember when one of the Realme GT flagships, I think the 3 or the 2, had the microscope that we had on the Oppo Find?
I do kind of remember that. I never got that phone, but I remember seeing videos with that.
So they kind of recycle parts. So this is telling us that, unfortunately, the OnePlus 12 64 megapixel 3x optical zoom is the same as this, and it's going to be an OmniVision sensor, which is bad news. Yeah. OmniVision is where you go when you run out of, clout with your friends at Sony and at Samsung for the good sensors.
Sure. Yeah, I guess the question mark for me with this phone will be the price, because I think they could get away with it depending on the price.
Oh, it's going to be very aggressive. And I think that's the thing about Realme, right? I think that's what I love about them. Like, I think it was the GT3 that I had last, because the GT4, they don't do the number 4 in China. So the one we got at MWC, I'm pretty sure was GT3 Pro and the 240 watt one. And that thing was awesome for the money. Like, it didn't have wireless charging and stuff, but you looked at the price and you're like, 8 Plus Gen 1, like, everything was right about that phone. I loved it. And the charging, unbelievable.
Yeah. Yep.
So bring it on, Realme.
Could potentially burn your house down, but it was still unbelievable.
Well, we never had any reports of any issues. So
that's true.
You charged it multiple times with a fast charger. It doesn't get that warm too, which is really surprising, actually.
Yeah. It's a good point.
It's
It's more just the
reasonable.
thought of it. I'm running my mouth. I don't know what I'm talking
I
about.
know. No, I know. You're just making a joke, I think, at this point. Look, I think it's a valid fear, but here's the thing. I think their reputation's at stake. They wouldn't mess this up.
No, I think you're right.
Speaking of BBK Group, which is really now divided into two chunks, right? You've got Oppo, OnePlus. Realme is, even though they're separate, like they're so close to Oppo, OnePlus. The software is the same. They just called it Realme OS or whatever. Like, it's just like they share so many parts. The chassis even look the same sometimes. Like I want to have a talk with like Pete Lau at some point. Say, Pete, you got to clear this up. Like, you make it sound like it's
How
kind of
does
like
this
you
work?
made OnePlus sound like a separate company for a long time, but it wasn't. And now you've openly assimilated it in. Like, when's Realme coming, right? Because like it's inevitable. Realme is the new OnePlus, right? But then you have that completely different, like the crazy rogue company inside of BBK Group. To me, the ones that do the craziest stuff and take the biggest risks is Vivo. And Vivo makes the V series. Think of it as the Galaxy A series, right? Think of it as the Reno series for Oppo. It's kind of like upper mid-range, $500-ish max, maybe 600. And then below that, maybe as low as like 250, 300. And then there's a range of them, typically a V and a V Pro. They haven't done a V Pro Plus yet, so you get the feel for it. They're nice phones. They're definitely more like premium mid-range. And it's kind of like the Renos. I can't keep up. I cannot keep up, Christian. Like, I just got the V27 Pro. Like, I think I got it a month after MWC for 3 months ago. I haven't even set it up yet. I haven't had time. And there is a V29 now.
What happened to V28?
No, they always jump by 2.
Okay.
I don't know why.
Yeah, I can't keep up.
For me, it started with V21. I got the V21, then V23. I did an unboxing of the V23 and V23 Pro, and I don't know what happened, but this is one of my most viewed videos on YouTube.
Wow.
It's like literally hundreds of thousands of views. And I'm like, how did that happen? And then the V25, and then the V27, which I have now. I have the Pro version and the V29. Look, there's really not much to say about this. I just wanted to point out that it is crazy to me, and you tell me what you think, that we've got this V series and then the Reno series in parallel with that from Oppo that are literally being updated every 3 months.
Yeah.
Like, how is the turnaround so quick? Like, obviously they're working staggered, right? Like,
Sure.
They probably started on this phone a year and a half ago, but it means that every 3 months they have a team that goes out and starts a new phone that's going to be launched in a year and a half.
Must be working for them.
Yeah, I'm not sure it is though. Like, you never see these phones. Where do they sell? Like India, Philippines, Vietnam? I don't know. Like, I can't figure it out. Europe, I suppose. Yeah, this is official for Europe. So I have to say though, the V27 and the V29 have a nice, cool little thing. And they have a little ring light in the back, which is for selfies. And yeah, take it or leave it. I mean, maybe it's a gimmick. I need to test mine out to let you know. I don't know.
How often do you use your flash on your phone?
Never. I turn it off.
Except for the flashlight.
Yes, the flashlight. Or sometimes if I'm like, my landlord, I have to send them a photo of my old Victorian San Francisco apartment that has a leak at midnight under the crawl space, and there's absolutely zero light. I'll turn on the LED flash to take a photo. Then,
well, the good news is when you do that, it'll be color balanced. So it'll look nice and natural.
It will be color balanced. And also they use this as a notification light because I saw the V27 non-Pro in action at MWC, and that was cool. It had a little light. Same way as the Oppo Reno for a while had the camera surround. The surround of the bump was an LED notification light, which was really kind of cool.
Yeah.
Look, these phones look cool. Like, I like the industrial design on these. I just don't know what to make of. Yeah, I don't know what to make of the fact that they have a new phone every 3 months. Look, the specs are good too. 50 megapixel with the OIS. They're not messing about on the camera front here. 50 megapixel. Wow. Selfie cam? Woo. Crazy.
HD selfie cam.
Yeah, whatever that means. I hope it does more than 1080p video recording, because that's the thing that pisses me off the most about Chinese phones is like, oh, here's a selfie camera. Oh, you can only do 1080p.
Yeah.
But look, ultimately, 80-watt wire charging, I can't go wrong. This thing has some good specs. I don't know the money. Let's see. China prices. This is European, though. Does it say anything about the pricing?
No, we don't know pricing yet, I think.
Yeah.
But it looks like a solid phone.
Yeah, 778G. Interesting. This chipset's old now.
Yeah.
Like, you have 7 Gen 1 and 7 Gen 2 since then.
Yeah, that's true.
But honestly, there's not much of a difference between these Snapdragon chips. So
No, it'll be fine.
anyway, it exists. I mostly wanted to talk about the craziness of making a new phone every 3 months because it blows my mind.
Vivo V29. It exists.
I know. It exists. We're the best marketers in the world, Christian.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you remember the phone 2, nothing? I love that phone. I finally retired. I used it in Korea as well. And I finally, like, at the end of my trip, I was like, I need to switch phones.
Yep.
I pulled out the Honor 90 and made that the third or fourth phone or whatever for the next week or two.
Yep.
And well, that phone's not the only one now with some sort of like light show in the back. The techno folks are an interesting bunch because they make some interesting phones every now and then, like that techno folding phone, which I never got my hands on.
No, me neither. But I saw it at MWC.
Yeah, it was really cool, right? So, you know, there's this phone, and they always have the weirdest name. Power. It feels like,
Pova?
you know, get to the chopper. Feel the power.
That's a V, right? Am I crazy? Pova.
It's a V, yeah. Pova? I kind of want to say power.
Pova.
Pova or
More power
Pova
to you.
5 Pro. Dimensity 6080, you know, mid-range. Lots of LED lights on the back. Those are RGB lights apparently too, which is kind of cool. You can, unlike the nothing, you can change their color.
Sure. Why
It
not?
does look like it does kind of look like a gaming phone, doesn't it?
A little bit. Yeah. It looks like
What's
a
your-
kind of in between, kind of nothing plus gaming.
What's your take on this industrial design?
I'm not the hugest fan.
No,
I like the nothing phone design. It's kind of unique,
it's very classy.
but you can't copy someone and also be unique. And so, you know,
Yeah, this kind of feels like the what's it called?
it's a Wish nothing phone. Yep.
Correct, that's what it is. The Wish Nothing phone.
I do like the flat camera array though.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I mean, there's some, look, the specs are cool. 5,000 milliamp hour battery, 68 watt charging, you know, 50 megapixel rear camera. Everybody's got that now. It's probably just, you know, like no OIS, nothing fancy here. But yeah, it's something.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
It's something.
Exactly. I think the other one has a 4G version with a Helio G99, but honestly, nobody cares.
Yeah.
But you know, here's the thing. Techno has a sister brand called Infinix, and Infinix also brought us something this week, or last week in this case, the GT10 Pro, and that sounds like, I love the GT branding. I love the Grand Touring for a phone. Like, it's just, there's something amusing about that. The GT10 Pro is a gaming phone from Infinix. Infinix is the sister brand of Techno. Together, they sell phones a lot in developing countries like African markets and India and places like that. And they're very successful. And I love their phones. I get a lot of them to play with. And I play with them a little bit here and there. And it's always a good experience. The software is a little wonky. It's kind of like Red Magic. You know, eventually you get over it because you understand that, you know, you get what you pay for. But since I'm a hardware person, I appreciate that they're making cool hardware. But this thing is a gaming phone with a Dimensity 80-something, 8050.
Yeah.
And looks, the specs are good, 120 hertz display. I mean...
Yeah. It looks like a nice phone. I'm, again, not a huge fan of the design, especially the back.
No.
But
I mean,
you know.
it seems like kind of like those two phones are kind of twins in a way. Like it seems like design-wise. But AMOLED, which I think if you're going to play games, you know...
Yeah.
10-bit AMOLED too. So
Yep.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
45 watt charging, 5,000 milliamp hour battery. Let's see what the camera situation is. 108 megapixels. Woo. I kind of dig the yellow one because it kind of has that Tonka construction vibe to it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not bad.
I can see it.
I mean, I just, this is the thing. Like, and this is why I think my audience appreciates this, Christian, is that if you're a real phone nerd, Android's where it's at for diversity. Like, look at this thing.
Yeah.
Look at this thing. Amazing.
I've looked at it.
I kind of want to get one. I'm going to try to get one, the yellow one, just because I need to take a photo and put it on my Instagram. It's crazy.
It would be a good unboxing.
Right? All right, so it exists. A lot of the hardware is shared with the Infinix Note 30 Pro, which came out about a month ago. That makes sense. All right, well, anyway, that's it for those two. Let's talk earbuds, because Sony launched, while the whole brouhaha was happening in Korea, Sony decided, hey, let's come out with our earbuds, our flagship earbuds, the WF series, and this now marks 5. So WF-1000XM5.
XM5.
Thank you. XM5. So basically, I don't have them yet. I'm waiting for review units. I'm going to post a review from Engadget because Billy Steele is pretty awesome. I worked with him there. I trust his judgment. The reviews are pretty much all the same. Battery life hasn't really changed too much, but it's all about the sound quality is slightly improved, noise reduction slightly improved, and more importantly, the XM4s were so bulky that I personally couldn't use them comfortably.
Right.
And I've got a relatively big ear, so I went to the Link Buds. The Link Buds S were my go-to last year. They were so great. They were lightweight. They sounded almost as good as the XM4s. But these XM5s are supposed to solve this by being lighter and smaller. And I welcome that change because, man, I'm a Sony fan when it comes to anything noise canceling.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that was my biggest issue too, is the size. If they've cut down on the size a little bit and made them a bit smaller, it seems like they're a little bit more expensive, which is no fun. But
$20. I mean, you're already paying whatever, $300 at that point. It's like the Sony tax,
The Sony tax.
I mean, look, let's not mess about. Sony makes good audio stuff. You want it, you pay for it. They know they can charge a premium. Like, I'm sorry, like that's how it goes.
Yeah.
It's like, do you think Shure, which I'm using to record this mic, like, do you think Shure doesn't charge a premium because they're Shure? Of course they do. Sure, they do.
Sure.
Sorry. I just had to do that, didn't I?
Yeah.
Let's talk about electric cars because, well, we have a bit of time left. And more importantly, you and I get to play with some really weird ones. Like, I just had, the week before I went to Korea, I borrowed the i7, the flagship BMW 7 Series, basically, electric version.
Yeah.
And that thing is bonkers. Like,
it's
not
crazy.
Like, I've been in the back of a Maybach, so it's like the same kind of deal. You've got like the reclining, massaging, heated, cooled seats, like executive class sedan, right? It's like essentially a limo without the stigma attached to the word limo, right? Like, and with all the classiness of a high-end German car. But basically, you got like a, I think, 31-inch screen in the back that comes down with Fire TV.
It's very wide.
Yeah, it's ultra wide. It's like really only using like 2/3 of it when you're watching content.
It's one of what, like 6-7 screens in that car?
Yeah, so that's the other thing, right? The armrests, not armrests, but the door panels on the rear doors have a little, essentially like a little 6.7-inch like smartphone display in them.
Yeah.
With those icons drive me nuts. They look like something out of Windows 3.1, right?
Yeah. They're pretty old school.
But they let you control the seats, the lighting, the screen, the temperature, the blinds. There's blinds, of course, like all that stuff. And, it's really cool. Like, I just wish whoever designed that UX should be shot because really...
It's a cool idea, but the software definitely could have some work done to it. But yeah, it's a cool idea.
I think what stands out to me about that car is that it's not so much this rear experience, which is very Maybach and other high-end German cars. I've had that before. S-Class. It's just more like that they have this Fire TV display that kind of kind of comes down from the ceiling when you want it.
Yeah.
Does it run? Does it work when you're driving, or do you have to retract it to drive? That's the thing I couldn't figure out.
I think it works when you're driving.
Interesting. But then the front seats have to be pushed forward a little bit, which for me didn't work because I had my seat too far back.
Yeah. I could be wrong that it works when you're driving. But
there's a few things. And did you notice, at least on my car, which I think is the same as yours, there was like the murdered out Darth Vader car, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the matte black one with black trim.
Yep.
That car, they didn't have the eSIM enabled, and you couldn't tether the Fire TV to a hotspot.
Right. So
I couldn't actually test it out.
No.
The only way you can use the Fire TV system in the back seat, this is like the stupidest thing, is by subscribing to an eSIM that you have to do through the BMW connected app. And that means you have to have a BMW ID, which they never give us these things. Like, that's the thing that drives me nuts the most about reviewing cars for tech.
Yeah.
Especially the EVs, is they never give us the app access.
No. Yeah.
And then we can't really use the features. We can't really test the stuff. But if I had a login on BMW and I could have logged in, I would have happily added an eSIM for a week to try it out. But then why doesn't it let us use a hotspot to connect to it? Like, how the hell is that?
So it was a few months ago that I had it. Does it not have a HDMI port?
Yes, it does. I could have totally connected an HDMI device to it, but that kind of, come on. Like, the whole point is to try to set up the Fire TV thing. We're tech reviewers. You want to try the whole thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Anyway, the other thing that stands out to me about this car is it's clearly has an aesthetic that appeals to the Chinese market. Like crystal everywhere, gold bling, crazy LED light show. Like, it's tastefully done. The build, the quality, the material, the fit and finish is as German as you'd expect. It's a beautiful interior. I liked it a lot.
The interior is great.
Absolutely, but it's not my taste. Like, that's the thing, like, there's like the complete opposite Spartan. You get in a Polestar or a Volvo, or you get in a Tesla, and you're like, what the hell am I in here? Like IKEA? And then, you go to the other end, which is like, oh, would you like caviar with your, with your bling? That's kind of like where my back and this i7 are. And I kind of wish there was an in-between. I kind of, maybe it's because I'm old school and I love cars from the early aughts and the late 90s. But I kind of wish that simplicity that BMW and Mercedes had back in those days, I kind of want that to come back. Like, I want the features, I want the tech, but I don't want the bling. I want it to be understated.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. The bling is a little much.
Like, you drove the XM, I didn't, but you did. And that thing is like, hi, I'm a baller. Like, literally, it's like, it's a status symbol on wheels, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I felt uncomfortable driving it.
Yeah. And what I kept doing with the i7? Unfortunately, Theo wasn't with me at the time for me to chauffeur them around, for them to enjoy the wonderful experience of the back seat. So the only time I really experienced this is when the car was stopped. Yeah. Since we're the only people allowed to drive the car when we borrow them. Yeah. But I would have loved to be chauffeured around or chauffeur someone. So what I did is I closed the blinds in the back.
Nice.
Every time I drove around town. So people would be like, who the hell is that? Especially,
what celebrity
me, right?
is in the back of that car?
You know me, I've got tats and everything. So people are like, who's driving that? Is this the Yakuza I'm dealing with? Because that dragon tattoo. So I kind of had a kind of fun time driving it around town and people looking or not looking, because it is kind of, even though it's murdered out, black, matte, whatever, it's a little nondescript, right?
The outside is a little bit. I still think it's pretty flashy. I mean, I got a lot of people looking.
I think the wheels are pretty cool. The wheels are the only shiny thing on the whole car.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. And then the other car that I felt was kind of like completely different over the top EV was the Kia EV6 GT, which is just like essentially a Taycan for like a third of the price in terms of performance.
That car is a lot of fun. Kia took me out to a launch event for it, and I got to drive it around a track and stuff, and it was super fun. Got to do a drag race in it.
Nice. I only borrowed it from the press fleet for a
Yep.
week, and man, that thing hauls
Yeah,
ass.
it's quick.
Like, I mean, I drive a Model 3 Performance. It hauls ass, but this thing also hauled ass.
Yeah.
And it also had a drift mode, which is
Yeah.
freaking
I drifted
hilarious. I drifted it on gravel because I didn't want to do it on asphalt because I thought I couldn't trust myself with it.
Yeah.
But you can get the rear end to go out really easily on gravel with it.
Yeah.
So that was fun. You know, I went out to like Marin and like the back
Nice.
roads where there's like dirt roads and stuff. And I just like off-roaded that thing a little bit. It was good times. Thank God
It's a
they
cool
changed
car.
the tires on these cars, right?
Yeah. I don't think I'd recommend someone buy the EV6 GT just because the range is so much lower than the standard models, but it was fun to drive.
Thanks for bringing that up because that was my biggest complaint. My second biggest is I'm a big person and those sport bucket seats are just uncomfortable.
Yeah, they're not.
Like, I think that on a car like that, you should have an option, maybe not the default, but like an extra cost option, even like at a $500 or $1,000 option for the regular seats from the regular EV6 because they're nice too. Maybe slightly more support, but like regular seats, because the regular seats also have cooling, which you lose on the EV6 GT, which is a bummer. You still get heated seats.
Okay.
But yeah, that car's bonkers. The other car that really impressed me, and I drove it twice. I drove the iX and the iXM, like the performance model. The iX left me kind of cold, like it's comfortable, it's competent, it's quirky looking, it's very BMW, like the current weirdness that they're going through with their design.
Yeah.
I dug it, but it wasn't like, I didn't make a great impression.
Yeah.
But then I drove the M model and I was like, oh, now I get it.
Okay.
Now I understand what you're trying to do here.
That's interesting because I have not driven the M model. I drove the.
Oh, you need to borrow it. It's a night and day. It's a freaking beast. It's like the EV6 GT. Unbelievably fast.
Huh.
Have you driven the i4M?
No, I have not.
Same thing. So if you have, I've driven also both of the i4s, and the i4 regular I think is a fantastic car. In fact, it's probably the one I would recommend. But if you want to go hooligan crazy, you want to go like AMG kind of crazy, like not M, because M is typically, you know, extremely good handling and performance. But this is also extremely good handling and performance because it is an M car. But it's much more like straight line acceleration from hell, you know, like AMG style, like, you know, Dodge Charger Demon kind of style. It goes, the i4M. Oh my God. Like the i4M and the iXM are the cars that kick you back in the seat even more than my Model 3 Performance.
Yeah.
Even more than the EV6 GT. That should tell you something.
Okay. Wow.
Like literally where you're like, ow, my neck.
Literal whiplash.
I don't know if that's a good thing, but at the same time,
it's fun.
It kind of blows my mind that we can make cars that do that.
Yeah. Whether
you should buy that, I probably wouldn't spend the extra money. Like, I think, honestly, my favorite of all the i-Series BMWs I've driven is probably the i4 base.
Okay. Yeah.
Because it had that delicate balance between handling and performance that BMW is so well known for.
Yeah.
And it was rear-wheel drive only. The i4M was brutal, but it also felt like the front and the back were separate cars almost. Like they didn't have the all-wheel drive tuning quite right in terms of motor control. I think that got updated with software and improved, but I had it very early on. You know, whereas one of the things that Tesla does so well is the drivetrain. Like the all-wheel drive, you never feel like the front of the car is doing something different than the rear when you push it. It's always very consistent. So, yeah, I'm just nitpicking here because all these cars are absolutely sublime. If you haven't driven an EV, especially a performance EV, you need to try. It's a mind-melding experience, right?
Yeah, the first time is, your mind will
and
be
then
blown.
You get used to it, and then you want more.
Yeah, and then you're jaded.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good way to end the show. You're just jaded. Christian, tell the folks here where they can find you on the internet. What platforms do you use for social media these days? And tell them about where you write.
I'm on Thread. I'm not really on Twitter anymore. Kind of taking a break from that. You can see me on YouTube. You can see me on Instagram. Just search Christian DeLupa. It's a bit of a pain to spell, but I'm sure if you type it wrong, Instagram will correct it for you.
Great. Well, don't worry. I will link to some stuff in the show notes. Where can they find your writing?
Oh, man, all over the place. I'm writing for BGR. I'm writing for Digital Trends. I'm writing for a bunch of other publications. If you search my name, a bunch of stuff will come up.
Yeah, you're kind of everywhere. But I believe your Digital Trends is mostly cars, right? And your BGR is mostly tech, right now? Okay.
BGR is mostly gadgets. Digital Trends is mostly cars.
Yeah.
And I'm doing some smart home stuff for USA Today Review.com.
Yeah, I saw that. Like, I was like, you're everywhere, man. Like, you're the most prolific. Like, I don't know how you create this much content. It's plus all the cool videos you do on your YouTube and on your Insta and stuff. It's amazing. Christian is awesome. I told you guys. So check out his stuff on all the various channels. You know where to find me, folks. I'm at Tankgirl. That's TNKGRL, like the comic book character. Drop the vowels. I'm on Twitter/X still, for better or for worse. I'm on Threads. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Blue Sky. I am not on Mastodon. Well, I am technically, but I don't use it. And then, of course, the podcast lives at mobiletechpodcast.com. We're on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Spotify, everywhere good podcasts can be found. If your app lets you review or rate the show, please consider doing that. It'd be pretty awesome. And, the other thing is there's a YouTube channel, youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast. I've got my hands-on video there with the Flip 5 and the Fold 5 from Samsung, the Z series. Check it out. And, other unboxings and hands-on videos are going to be on there. And then if you want to help me out, there's a Patreon, patreon.com/tankgirl. That's patreon.com/TNKGRL. The big shtick here is there's a video version of this podcast. It comes out a little ahead of the audio version, which obviously is free. But the video version is a perk you get through Patreon. So for $10 a month, you can get to see every episode on video ahead of the audio version. And sometimes there's bloopers because I don't edit them quite as much. And sometimes there's me showing my watch or showing my phone, or like in the case of Christian showing the Magic V2 earlier. So, it's kind of a bit more intimate. So check it out. If you want to help me out, that's also a great way to do so. There's also lower tiers, including access to our Discord server and stuff like that. So please check it out and consider helping me. And if you don't want to use Patreon, there's also a way to donate really quickly. You want to buy me a coffee or something, there's a PayPal link in the show notes. You can look at that and click through. And I want to thank our sponsor, Mint Mobile. You know I review a lot of phones, so I'm constantly juggling multiple devices. While that's fun, it also means I'm spending a lot of money for wireless service on multiple SIMs. Thankfully, there's Mint Mobile, and that's who I'm teaming up with for today's podcast. If you want to save money on your wireless service, switch to Mint Mobile. You've probably seen the Mint Mobile ads featuring Ryan Reynolds, but let me quickly tell you how fantastic their service is, especially for tech-savvy early adopters like us. Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for as low as $15 a month, and you don't have to sacrifice any coverage, speed, or data. They're built on the nation's largest 5G network. They keep costs low because they sell direct to you online. They cut out the retail stores and salespeople. Why should you pay more than you have to for access to the same network? In my experience testing phones, Mint Mobile delivers the same data speeds and call quality as the big three for a fraction of the cost. Switching to Mint is super easy. Thanks to their eSIMs, you can sign up and activate immediately right on your phone from the comfort of your home. No more standing around waiting in line at a big wireless store. You can keep your current devices and phone number and easily switch services. And if your phone isn't eSIM compatible, Mint will ship you a new SIM card free of charge. The whole process only takes 15 minutes, and if you get stuck, Mint has a great customer service team to get you through it. All Mint Mobile plans include unlimited nationwide talk and text, plus lightning-fast 5G and free mobile hotspot. Mint will show you how much data you use each month and recommend plans that save you money. Mint also offers a modern family plan that lets you set up a super affordable family plan with as little as 2 lines. Use my link, mintmobile.com/mobiletech, to get premium wireless starting at $15 a month. Stop paying more than you need on your wireless bill and start saving big with Mint Mobile. And I want to thank you, Christian, for being my guest again this week. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Definitely, we'll have you on again at some point in the future. And folks, I will have another podcast next week, so stay tuned for that. Until then, cheers, everybody.
This has been the Mobile Tech Podcast with Tank Girl, proudly presented by worldpodcasts.com. You can visit us online at mobiletechpodcast.com.